Hi there, I'm Pierre Lebel, President and Chief Results Officer at Rzultz Consulting, a business performance advisory firm focused on helping organizations and leaders just like you to perform better and to get better results. Like you, we are focused on our top line and your business's top line, and it's that top line that keeps us motivated. I'm really pleased to be part of the CPSA's discussion and knowledge generation to help members just like you to improve your knowledge and ultimately your sales results. At the end of the day, I always say, yes, it's always about the results. As sales professionals and sales leaders, I know that you've got a tough job. There is pressure to perform each and every day, and it isn't always easy or fun. I once heard someone say, I love my sales job. It's the work I hate. And we all know that sales work is tough. My years in the trenches doing sales myself, doing business development, marketing, branding, and business performance consulting has taught me a thing or two about being successful, and at a minimum, how others define success too. I've also been exposed to and have had the pleasure of working with a gazillion different salespeople in different organizations across North America and Europe. I know a good salesperson when I see them. And really, it's not about how they look. It's not about their fancy dancy suit, their bells and whistles, or in my case, the funky mustache. It's how they pull me into the dream, or the features and benefits of something new and fangled that makes me think, wow, they've got that magic that made me want to buy that new thingy. I say that these individuals have what I call the it factor. The it factor is when an individual is clear about their intention, meaning they want to sell me something that they think will help me, employ whatever technique to convince me that the thing they are presenting or selling to me is what I need or want. I call this the intelligent interaction. And then they share information or experiences of others who have already benefited from this item or service. I call this impressive insight. And all these things lead me to trust him or her even more. Our results, we say, you gotta dot your I's to cross your T's. Intent, interaction, insight, all leading to trust. And you all know it's easy and easier to sell a product or service when the buyer trusts us. But enough of the it factor or how to develop the know-how and skills to develop what the it factor takes to be successful. Let's now focus on what we're really here for today. Our topic is on how to improve business results through a smart sales business model and strategy. My hope for you is that you will learn one or two things from the CPA session that will help you in your job, perhaps to give you some additional knowledge that you didn't have before, a bit more confidence in approaching sales strategies or problems, or lastly, insight from a dude who has beaten a path to cash. I don't claim to be a sales expert. I only claim to owning my own struggle and trying my darndest to become a better salesperson. Before we get into the meat of the presentation, I want to share a couple of points with you. First, I've always believed that information is power. My early career as a journalist and newspaper editor taught me to mine for data, not just any data, but real data that is timely, fact-based, and instrumental in making real-time, smart business decisions. In my reporting days, good information sold newspapers. Today, information is everywhere, and that's why we've seen a massive decline in newspaper readership, and yes, newspaper revenue. Hence the consolidation of the media giants over the last 10 years and the way mass media is used today. The second thing I've learned over the years is that all great salespeople tell great stories. That means all sales professionals must know how to tell great stories all the time. Not just any story. I'm talking about the right story. It's how these sales professionals weave their stories that are not only compelling and intriguing to us, but how they catch us in what I call the web of want. I want it, therefore I shall have it. It's what compels today's hyper-insane buying patterns of consumers around the world. Just think if you had the vision of Jeff Bezos, entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist. He founded Amazon and he's the biggest shareholder. Claims are that his net worth is about $92 billion US, the world's second richest person. He had a dream and he sold a story and he made it come true. Have you heard about the book called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes? If not, it might be a time to check it out. Chet introduced what's called the core story. Chet worked with over 60 of the Fortune 500 companies as one of America's top marketing executives, trainers, strategic consultants, and motivation experts. He pioneered the concept of knowing your prospects' needs, wants, and challenges better than anyone else and wrapped marketing data into a presentation he called the Core Story. He knew that it was all about the story and how information was and is power. I've learned in my business that telling the right story to the right audience is imperative to success. And lastly, the third thing I want to put out there is that hoping for success just ain't gonna cut it. A famous person once said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that person was Samuel Johnson, an 18th century British poet and playwright. I've lost count on how many times I've seen sales plans with little or no real market data. And I've become bewildered with seeing sales plans not linking directly to corporate objectives or strategy. Ugh. Now let me take you to the next slide. Fast growers have a long-term outlook. You and I both know there are companies out there that are known for being fast growers and innovators. What distinguishes sales organizations at fast-growing companies from their lagging peers? In a worldwide ranging survey of more than 1,000 companies, consulting giant McKinsey & Company unearthed in 2015 5 meaningful differences in their sales growth 2015 survey. The first is that commitment to the future is imperative. The world of work today is darn tough. Faster, cheaper, smarter, leaner, more value, sustainable. These are words that we hear each and every day. So much so that it all becomes white noise. And it's this noise that often deafens us to reality. That the world is changing ever more quickly may be a cliche, but that makes it no less true. The survey findings conclude that all sales leaders know that they need to anticipate changes that can turn into opportunities or threats. Yet the best leaders move beyond just acknowledgement to commitment. They make trend analysis a formal part of the sales process through systematic investments of time, money, and people. Building and sustaining the capability to take a forward-looking view of the market is not easy. It is claimed that there are 2 common characteristics of powerful sales professionals. The first is the mindset of sales leaders, and 2, their commitment to effective resources to help them do sales even better than before. Sales leaders must consistently monitor the macro environment in search of sales opportunities. No easy tasks given the relentless pressure to hit the near-term targets. Forward planning must be part of someone's job description, not just part of top management's lengthy to-do list, with sufficient resources to take advantage of the best opportunities. Companies have to be willing to take risks now to create sales capacity long before revenue will even materialize. McKinsey survey findings concluded that more than half the fast-growing companies it analyzed took at least 1 year out, and 10% looked more than 3 years out. After planning, sales leaders aren't afraid to put their money where they think the growth will be. 45% of fast-growing companies invest more than 6% of their sales budget on activities supporting goals that are at least a year out. A significant commitment in an environment where sales leaders fight for each dollar of investment. So the question for all of you is, what do you and your organization do to look forward and create a long-term outlook for your company? We all know that fast growers have more successful performance improvement initiatives geared to making a difference. There appears to be a marriage of clear vision with leadership action. For instance, 2/3 of fast-growing companies undertook a major performance improvement over the previous 3 years, and 84% considered it successful or very successful. Another question for you is, what are you, your sales team, and your organization doing and investing in to link strategy and change projects to drive and support better results? So now what? What can organizations do differently or better than before when they want to lead, be more successful, and be more satisfied than just hitting marginal sales numbers? What do they do differently? What can you do as a sales leader to think differently about your plan of attack? And how can you prove to your bosses that you are a star performer? Well, let's start this conversation now. Today's core focus is to augment what you likely already know so that you and your sales team can get better at creating strategic alignment between the market and your customers and your organization, and also creating a laser-sharp strategic focus on real results. The powerful combination of a sales and revenue generation business model and strategy map forms a powerful toolkit to formulate the right strategic mindset, build the best possible go-to-market strategy, and create a more sustainable platform to manage risk and make more money. Today, we will look at two key tools, processes and visual languages, to help you as a sales leader and change agent to envision a better future state and then achieve it. The first is a sales business model canvas, and the second is a sales strategy map. From my experience working with hundreds of different organizations across North America, is that these two tools, methods, help drive growth and contribute significantly to our organization's sustainability. So to stay ahead of the market, anticipate and respond to trends, and to navigate the ever-changing landscape of customer demand, it is critical for sales organizations and leaders to create what we call strategic alignment between what the market and your customers want and what your organization delivers. Okay, by adapting, learning from, and using powerful and best-in-class business modeling tools, we envision that you'll be better able to understand your market, make more money, sharpen your value proposition, build the right channels and relationships, refine and improve your strategy and plan, and last but not least, make more money. So now that we've introduced the concept of a business model, one needs to fully understand what it means in order to determine if your organization has a full and accurate understanding of your organization's go-to-market strategy, value proposition, cost structure, and strategic relationships. Simply, a business model describes the rationale of how your organization or team creates, delivers, and captures value. In other words, it means how you and your organization are going to stay in the game and make great money and profits long term. So why innovate your business model? Why bother with a business model at all? Why innovate it? Well, it's simply the difference between having a great business model or not. In simple language, it means success or failure. So we know that great business models can reshape industries and drive spectacular growth. Just think about Apple. When it introduced the iPod with iTunes, it did something far smarter than wrap a good technology in a snazzy way. It wrapped a good technology in a great business model. We also know that when companies attempt to create or refine their business models, that they struggle with reinvention. They struggle with a myriad of reasons, anywhere from understanding their real business value proposition to a full understanding of their cost structure. And we know from direct experiences that organizations that lose or don't have great insight into their cost structure are doomed for failure. Losing sight of this is like cutting your carotid artery and not even knowing it. Eventually and quickly, there's a messy bleed out. Just look at Sears, Eaton's, Target, BlackBerry, etc. The question for you now is, now what? Okay. And what can you do as a sales leader to avoid this problem or bleed out? So what I want to do is introduce to you the work of Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pigneur, two thought leaders who authored the concept of business model generation. Through extensive research, thought incubation labs, and validation testing, they came out with a simple yet robust business modeling methodology and tool called the business model generation. With their business model canvas, there are 9 building blocks to create a great business model. Okay. Before we showcase what these 9 business model building blocks look like, let me share a few insights with you. The first is good business model generation with a good process helps teams to formulate new ideas about new sources and new ways to get more revenue. When an organization or sales team struggles, I often start by asking the team or sales leaders of that team some hard questions about their sales targets, how revenue is made, where their greatest challenges are in revenue growth and profitability, what are the biggest risks, and where are the biggest opportunities. Often, though, even the best sales leaders don't have all the answers. So we encourage organizations or sales teams to enter a process to explore their business model and how they make money. I like to keep things simple. Most people like to keep it simple too, and that's why I tend to use simple methods and tools to create a reality check and then build delightful conversations about the current state of sales success and then envision what a future state of success could look like. First and foremost, business model innovation done right can be a simple model. If using the right tool with the right process of engagement with the right audience, then business model innovation can be quite easy to do. That's why we use a simple model to get sales leaders and managers to think through the hard issues, pains, gains, and ways to create better and more sustainable revenue. The second is a good approach to business model innovation creates room for hard thinking and hard discussions. It's not easy to go into this space, but if the team engaged in doing business model innovation uses accurate and timely data, sales information, meaning revenue, profitability, etc., for each product and or service, insights, etc., then it becomes quickly apparent as to where their future possibilities for net new revenue can be found. And third, through business model innovation, it is hard to escape the hard reality. So now let's quickly introduce the business model canvas with its 9 building blocks. The first is the customer segment. Customer segments define the different groups or organizations an enterprise or company aims to reach and serve. The second is the value proposition. The value proposition is a central element of the business model canvas. It is the reasons why customers choose your company over another, and it solves a customer problem or satisfies a customer need. The third is the customer relationship. That building block describes the types of relationships a company establishes with specific customer segments. Channels are customer touch points that play an important role in the customer experience. The revenue streams building block represents the cash a company generates from each customer segment, and costs must be subtracted from revenues to create earnings. Key resources is that building block which describes the most important assets required to make a business model work. Key activities. These are the most important actions that companies must take to operate successfully. Key partners describes the network of suppliers and partners that make the business model work. And lastly, the cost structure. The cost structure describes all costs incurred to operate a business model. So now that we've quickly gone through each business model building block, the question remains, why bother? Why have a business model, and why is it important? Well, it's important to understand your market and customer approach because it affects everything that you do and your organization does in terms of making money and staying in business. Take a look at this slide and the 6 types of business model approaches. The first is resource-led, okay? And that resource-led describes how those resources help you create relationships in the market. Offer-led. What is your value proposition doing to attract both customer segments and the right partners to help you make money? The third is customer-led. What are those customer segments helping you to define what your value propositions, your products and services are, and ultimately money? Finance-led is when your organization is driven by profitability, okay, and how your organization makes money time and again, and it informs the kind of customer segments you chase and the partners that you have to ultimately make money. And the last is multi-centered led, okay? How does your value proposition, your customer segments and strategic partners enable you to make money?
walked in. Well, that's good. Yeah. So, yeah.
I bet many of you struggle to determine what is your organization's market and customer approach. And I can count on one hand how many times clients can quickly determine their current approach to customers. Most struggle. So now when you're looking at your business model current state, we always start with understanding your organization's value proposition. From a communications and marketing perspective, few organizations have done this very, very well. Now let's take a look at specifically the importance of the value proposition building block. So the value proposition, simply stated, is a clear statement about the outcomes that a customer or organization realize using your product or service. The value proposition is the central reason why customers turn to one organization over another. It solves a customer problem or satisfies a customer need. Each value proposition consists of a selected bundle of products and or services that caters to the requirements of a specific customer segment. In this sense, the value proposition is an aggregation or bundle of benefits that an organization offers customers. Some value propositions may be innovative and represent a new or disruptive offers. Others may be similar to existing market offers, but with added features and benefits. So what value your organization delivers to the customer? Which one of your customer problems are we or you helping to solve? Which customer needs are you actually satisfying? What bundles of products and services are you offering to each customer segment? So we also know, as I said earlier, that the value proposition is a clear statement about the outcomes that a customer or an organization realizes from using your products or services. But what it's not is a slogan or a catchphrase or a description of your services or passions. And lastly, it's not information simply about your company, product, or service. So value. The question is, what does value actually mean? To make it easier, here are some examples of value for different types of customers. Process improvement, saving time, saving money, helping to make money, providing valuable information, or making someone's day a whole lot easier. It could be these or many other different types of value. Value is always perceived by the customer, and the customer counts. So according to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs who start businesses fail within the first 18 months, a whopping 80% crash and burn. The reason for that is not really, it's because those entrepreneurs are not really in touch with customers through deep dialogue. Okay, an amazing thing happens when an entrepreneur sees a potential opportunity in the market or dreams up a new idea for a product or service, and they sometimes retreat to their cave. In my experience, this is the worst move an entrepreneur can make because complete understanding of your customer is imperative to your success. Listen, in my mind, entrepreneurs must walk 1,000 miles in the shoes of their customers, not 10, not 100, 1,000. And your customer holds the key to your success deep in their pain, their behavior, their dreams, the values, and the jobs they are trying to accomplish. Your solution. In 1999, 4 smart guys wrote a book called The Clue Train Manifesto. Although the book is a tough read in my opinion, there's one silver bullet piece of wisdom shouting from the information, and that is markets are conversations. Dialogue is key, and 140 character tweets don't count. Real dialogue with real customers via whatever channel is best for them. Okay. So Nathan Furr and Paul Alstrom, co-authors of the book Nail It, Then Scale It, said it best. Which would you rather do? Talk to a customer now and find out you were wrong, or talk to customers a year, 4 year, and thousands of dollars down the road and they still find out you were wrong? The key is that some entrepreneurs don't create any real differentiation in the market. I once remember doing some work in the United States. I work for an organization that brought together 25 female CEOs and entrepreneurs from across North America. And when I sat down and help them work on their vision and then their strategy. I started the question of, what is your organization's vision? How does your value proposition equate to dollars? How does it differentiate from others? So when we looked at their vision and then I reviewed their vision statements, I can categorically say that 90% of the vision statements I read from 25 different companies all more or less read the same. And that's shocking and that's disappointing. So how in the heck can an organization compete in the market of today with statements of value or vision or mission that is so similar to others? So if many organizations fail in their first few years as a startup, or organizations struggle with market growth or new revenue streams, what can these organizations do regarding building or rebuilding their brand? It's not just about startups that need to be concerned. It's those organizations that have had the luxury of years of success, which now face competitive factors, either market changes, new entrants, consolidations, mergers and acquisitions, to name a few. They're disrupting even the best or most successful company. One doesn't have to look far to have witnessed the collapse of once industry giants, Eaton's, Sears, as Canadian examples. And one just has to look back a few years to see how miserably Target did in its expansion to Canada. That failed entry into Canada cost Target shareholders over $1 billion US. Ouch. And to give you a sense of what organizations have done to enter into and stay in the market, here are some unique value proposition statements that will, if nothing else, challenge your thinking about the power of your organization's brand or value proposition and whether or not that helps or hinders your sales effectiveness. The first is Apple. Okay, Apple has a great value proposition for every product, but one that is particularly impressive is its statement for the MacBook. In this witty example, Apple emphasizes how lightweight its product is, its biggest differentiator, by the way, while also speaking to how advanced its technology is through their value proposition that it's light years ahead. Okay. Another is Uber. Another great example is that the ever so competitive transportation service dominating the markets in North America, and that's Uber, as we all well know. Without explicitly saying so, Uber expertly highlights everything that sucks about taking a traditional taxi and points out how its service is far superior to those. The simple yet highly effective copy above, taken from the Uber home slide, excellently conveys the simplicity and ease that lies at the heart of what makes it such a tempting service. One tap and our car comes directly to you. Your driver knows exactly where to go, and payment is completely cashless. Everything about this directly contrasts the typical experience of getting into a taxi. No phone calls to disinterested dispatchers, no painful conversations trying to explain to a stressed out cabbie about where you need to be, and no fumbling for change or worrying you've got enough bills in your wallet. Just a fast, easy way to get where you're going. That is reinforced by this aspirational messaging towards the top of the Uber home slide, which states, "Your day belongs to you." Another example is Vimeo. We'll do Tim Hortons first. Tim Hortons is one of Canada's most iconic brands, and it dominates the coffee market. While it's the biggest coffee chain in Canada with more than 3,600 stores across the country, Tim Hortons consistently ranks high in its brand studies. Qualitative and quantitative research shows that Canadians believe the company is reflective of Canada. In addition, authenticity is about heritage and Canada's values and being true to who we are. And I think Tim Hortons, certainly in the retail sector, scored among the highest in authenticity. Okay, authenticity or being relatable to customers is different than Canadians having some kind of strong patriotic attachment to the brand. Middleton expert dismissed the notion that Canadians' ties to the company founded by the Toronto Maple Leaf hockey player Tim Horton come from the profound sense of nationalism. There are certainly tinges of pride, but it's not overt. Vimeo, if you're familiar with it, positions itself as a higher quality, more sophisticated version of YouTube, and its value proposition makes this very clear. When you choose its platform over YouTube, you're making a commitment to posting something worth watching, not just another cat video. No offense, you cat video makers. Dollar Shave Club. By now, we all know and love Dollar Shave Club's marketing, and its value proposition is absolutely no exception. In this example, the cheeky brand does an impressive job of highlighting value and benefits instead of features, while also incorporating its biggest selling point, price. While it's not entirely clear who the brand is targeting here, for something as universal as shaving, it's not needed. Moving forward, we need to consider the value proposition versus the customer segment. When determining your value proposition and you think you need to refine it, the best way of doing so, in my opinion, is looking deeply into your customer base and perhaps into each core segment and asking yourself if you fully understand what is your customer in the business of? What do they make or provide to their customers? What are their pain points? And what are their potential gains that can be achieved to support them? Then when thinking about your business, in terms of providing products or services, the question becomes, what are the pain relievers and then gain creators that you can either do now or in the future? How does this now affect your future state business model and the richness, accuracy, and attractiveness of your current business model's future value proposition? The challenge many organizations have is knowing what type of approach they have going to market or dealing with their core customers. As I mentioned earlier, there are likely about 5 different approaches to customers and market. We talked about resource-led, offer-led, customer-led, finance-led, or multi-centered led. Okay. Which one is yours? Now, let's talk briefly about how you can start thinking about and then perhaps rationalizing your own value proposition. As you see here, there are 6 fireproof steps to figuring out the underpinnings of your value proposition. The first is understanding your market, the specific group of stakeholders you are targeting. Second is the value. The value is the benefits minus costs as perceived by your current and future stakeholders. What are the offerings? What's the product or service mix that you are offering to them? The value and the offerings themselves together helps formulate a point of reference for your value proposition. Moving forward, how are you offering and how is your offering delivering clear stakeholder value to your customer? How are you differentiating yourself with better alternatives? And what's the substantiated credibility and believability of your offering? All those 6 points help point towards your value proposition. This stakeholder value proposition map has 4 value map dimensions. The first is your market profile, comprised of market segments, the environment to compete in, and the competitors. The second is your stakeholder value proposition, which is comprised of your proposition itself and the key measures of success. And the third is the implementation profile, which outlines your partners, those that help you deliver value, your delivery framework, the activities you do and your resources you own, and your marketing and communication strategy and plan. And lastly, what is your financial profile, the desired revenue targets, your expected cost of delivery, and ultimately your surplus, meaning your margin. At the end of the day, sales organizations and teams should be this deliberate about their stakeholder value. This map outlines the frame or frame of reference of dimensions of the thinking and approach to creating and realizing value. The challenge now will be to shift from your current state to a future state of a business model. And it will be important that when thinking about this or working on your business model, that you shift your thinking from here and now and what the change requirements are moving forward. The core reason behind this is that a lot of organizations don't align their financial models, systems, controls, and in-depth reporting to how they actually sell or the other way around. Deeply disciplined sales and financial teams with good reporting tools that have synergy between what's actually sold and what is actually reported have a great handle on this. A lot of organizations don't, and that causes all kinds of issues when trying to get really clear on the actual current business model. When thinking about the challenge, we will always be determining the change initiatives that will drive the greatest value for your company or your desired customers. Being clear on what these are and how they are defined and what success is will allow your organization to invest in the right resources, activities, and projects and partners to manage the growth opportunity. The opportunity gained now is shifting from a revitalized and better business model to a strategy map, which outlines your core objectives linked to your desired financial results, your customer objectives, your operational objectives, and your internal growth objectives. So how do organizations who are highly successful have year-to-year sustainable positive growth? And those organizations have what I call a laser-sharp strategic focus on real results. These organizations adapt, learn from, and use powerful and best-in-class strategy tools to create absolute clarity of expected sales results, show the cause and effect relationship between objectives and priorities, to determine the meaningful sales and other measures of success to drive the right behaviors and right results, and lastly, to effectively manage the risks to achieve results. Despite what many people think, having gone through a strategy or planning exercise alone does not get organizations, teams, and leaders to a place that creates absolute clarity and focus on top and bottom line results, while at the same time thinking about and aligning your systems, resources, people, and investments the way they can. And yes, this is a tool. A strategy map can help out. Okay. A strategy map simply is a management tool and process that is simple yet robust enough to illustrate your organization or sales team's objectives and priorities aligned to 4 perspectives of strategy: financial, customer or stakeholder, internal operations, and learning and growth. It turns out to be a 1-page illustration of the cause and effect relationship between these 2 objectives, shows the priorities of the most important objectives, and allows your organizations or team to link projects, process, measures of success, and budget as well. It's that smart and it's that simple. So there are many reasons why you should use a strategy map. First and foremost, the strategy map provides clarity of your organization's or team's goals and priorities. In addition, it enables your team to translate the strategy or business goals into operational terms, meaning it enables leaders and managers to cascade or link these goals to theirs. It's a great tool to use to drive clarity of focus, priority, and success way down into their organizations. It's perfect for a sales organization to define their sales strategy, customer and market objectives, revenue generation opportunities and risk, and to link these directly to regions and salespeople. The strategy map also allows organizations and teams to define what success is both strategically and operationally. Most organizations use some form of a dashboard, meaning measures that declare when a project or change is complete. But a strategy map goes well beyond a traditional dashboard. It allows organizations and leaders to create, use, and learn from what is called a balanced scorecard, a management process and tool that captures what success is from the same strategy and operational perspectives. These are financial, customer, internal, and learning and growth. The strategy map also allows organizations to link rewards to achieving objectives and goals that are defined by the strategy map itself. Often, sales bonuses and commissions are tied to measures that often don't drive the right behaviors. For example, Organizations less in the know often have created a sales commission or bonus plan that rewards short-term gains, but may hurt mid-term or longer-term objectives. But with a strategy map and how it's built and used, there's a better chance of success if measures and then rewards are tied directly to objectives or goals that serve not only the financial objectives of the company, but also customer or stakeholder and internal needs too. And lastly, the strategy map drives greater accountability for success. To operationalize and achieve a strategy map's objectives, it is imperative that organizations or teams link their business and operational objectives and projects to them so that these get measured and talked about, so that the strategy map and scorecard serve as a strategic reporting tool. By doing so, it becomes easier and smarter to link these accountabilities to certain individuals and or teams. It drives greater clarity of accountability for results. And after all, those of us using these tools say, what gets measured gets talked about, and what gets talked about gets done. It's like mastering your ABCs. Once done a few times, then it becomes the basics for most decisions that drive change and results. So sales teams can use this strategy map concept when not clear about their own strategy and how it impacts on results. So what can you do? From our experience, learning from others is really important. From working in the trenches as a former business executive, working alongside CEOs and senior sales leaders, and then partnering and coaching hundreds of organizations across North America, I've learned a thing or two about helping organizations and teams get real clear and focus on results that truly matter. Through this time, I've had many experiences where the following questions always pop up. First and foremost, as a sales leader, do you fully understand what the owners or shareholders or board wants out of the business? Are you clear on the tangible results that they expect of you and your team? Do you fully understand the risks to your business or the sales function? And if not, you need to work on this. I've seen too many times over the last 20 years how sales leaders get whacked and sometimes sacked over not being fully aware of their blind spots and how that affects the business, its top line, and ultimately you. The third thing is, do you have a great sense of what your customers really want? What are they buying from you? What's in it for them? What's distinctive about your products or services that they can't get anywhere else? Can they form a healthy dependency on your organization, team, product, or service? Do you have a great sense of what your customers really want? Okay. Do you and your team really know how best to make the best money out there? Okay. Do you drive the right price, meaning for you and your top line, to create a sustainable and more profitable revenue stream? And lastly, do you have a great sense of what your customers are actually doing? Okay. And what are they actually saying about you? Do you know what the markets are doing? Are there key industry shifts? Are there consolidations? Do you know the right business intelligence? Have you segmented your business and how it serves your customers around your best customers, either price or volume? Is your business, your team, or your colleagues really innovating to creating customer value, not easily found elsewhere? Are you structured right to execute your strategy or plan? Do you have the right talent on your business or in your business and driving the bus? And lastly, do you have the right tools and technology to support your business or function? Now that we've gone through some tough questions out of the way, here are some things I kindly share with some of your clients. I kindly share with my clients that help them move from their current state of business performance to revitalize future and better state of performance. It's not always easy saying this, but for the most part, the first axiom of business is the most important to shift thinking and then doing things differently and better. First of all, it's important to realize that you are not as good as you think you are. It's one of the greatest failing points in business today, where people inside businesses think they are better than they actually are. It's both a blessing and a curse for entrepreneurs. It's a blessing because that energy propels innovators to create great new products or services. Just think how this thinking and behavior motivated Steve Jobs to create one of the most powerful products and brands in the world. But for others, it's a curse when they think that their latest and greatest product or service will command attention and therefore buying power. And yet we know that countless startups fail in their first year or two of business. It's about 80%, as I mentioned before. But just think of how many organizations try to introduce new products or services or move into new territory that miserably fail. Just think of Target moving into Canada. That was a multi-billion-dollar mistake which hit the bottom line. Just think how annoyed those shareholders were. Accepting that your organization's its products and services can be better is a foundation of success, okay? Never settle for second best. As well, have a clear visual picture of what success is. And that will help you and your team move from the abstract and conceptual to defining success in tangible, clear, and in quantitative ways. This will help you plan for success, build your structure and tools to achieve it, measure it, and recognize and reward the teams and people that enable this to occur. Appreciating that getting business is tough, but keeping business is even tougher. So part of the secret sauce of success is to always work on the business, not just in the business. From my experience working in the trenches as a former business executive, and partnering and coaching with hundreds of organizations across North America, I've learned a thing or two about how to help organizations and teams get real, clear, and focus on results that truly matter. I've always believed in a few axioms of business. First, there are lessons to be made from others. And the blueprint for success is based on the work of two thought leaders, Kaplan and Norton. And they created a blueprint for success for strategy-focused organizations, which include essential steps as outlined in these books before you. They are mobilizing change through, well, first of all, it's called the strategy-focused organization, and mobilizing change through executive leadership, strategy maps, the balanced scorecard, and alignment. And they came up with this set of principles of strategy-focused organizations. And the first is to mobilize change through executive leadership. The second is translating strategy into operational terms. The third is to align the organization with strategy. The fourth is to make strategy everyone's job. And lastly, formulating strategy is a continual process. These groundbreaking books, with the pioneer research behind it, helps organizations translate strategy into four perspectives. And these being the financial perspective, the customer perspective, the internal business process perspective, and learning and growth, all intended to achieve focus, alignment, to enable organizations to measure success, to budget, perform, and reward people and teams to achieve desired results. And as you can see from this visual, connecting the dots between vision and strategy with the four perspectives of strategy is a very powerful combination for success. As an example, this one-page illustration, you'll see a sales as you can see from this visual, connecting the vision and strategy all the way down to objectives, measures, targets, and initiatives is critical to drive success in organizations today. Kaplan and Norton went even further to introduce what is called the balanced scorecard as a process and tool to link and cascade strategy deep inside any organization or team through measures, annual performance targets, and accountability is a powerful driver for success. When you link those measures and targets and ultimately who's responsible to perform the work, both from a process and project perspective against each of these elements or perspectives of strategy, that creates an accountability system that's absolutely clear. An example in this one-page illustration, you'll see a sample sales strategy map. And you can see that the one, you can see the one that there are several white boxes with words which illustrate the strategic objectives for this sales organization or team. In addition, you'll notice several lines with arrows between these objectives. They represent the linkages between one objective and the next, meaning that one objective is more dependent on one of the others. This is critical when trying to determine the cause and effect of performance outcomes, or even better yet, the likely future performance. And at the bottom, you will see the organization's corporate values and how they underpin the desired learning and growth objectives. You'll also see the themes of strategy: sustainability, differentiation, and growth. Now, not all strategy maps are the same, okay? And they are all customized. The numbering system here, F1, F2, F3, is just a numbering system to convey that those are financial objectives, and the same for customer, internal, and the key enablers or learning and growth. They will indicate in your scorecard, what are the objectives and ultimately what are the measures attached to each. And what we try to do in a balanced scorecard for a sales strategy map is to make sure we're clear on what success is, both quantitatively and qualitatively for each of those objectives. And more importantly, what are the investments, your sales or business development processes, and more importantly, any change projects that will improve how you do the work or how you achieve those objectives. As I mentioned earlier, there are several components of a sales strategy map. In this slide, we simply explain the ontology or simple definition of the strategy map in simple language. For instance, as I had mentioned earlier, the 4 types of strategy perspectives are financial, customer, internal processes, and learning and growth. For public sector organizations or government sector organizations, typically the customer is called a stakeholder, and that stakeholder perspective is at the top of the strategy map, and the financial perspective is at the bottom. The reason for that is that no customer or stakeholder objectives can ever be met without having the financial resources to do it, and therefore the financial perspective and its incumbent objectives are at the bottom of the strategy map itself. You'll see here that the definition of an objective is really typically a 2-year goal that an organization or team must allocate time, people, and resources to actually accomplish that objective. And you'll see the lines pointing from one objective to the next. Those are what are called the strategic relationships between one objective and the next. When measuring success, for instance, when you're looking at I3 under the internal perspective, where it says develop market-leading agility as an objective, and the performance is yellow, meaning it's cause for concern, one needs to look at, have we done the work attached to understanding our customer segments? Okay, and maybe you haven't done that because you haven't strengthened the capability and capacity to innovate or build an entrepreneurial mindset or optimize your operational infrastructure. At the end of the day, we want to see the cause and effect relationship between the objectives at the very bottom of the strategy map to ultimately at the very top, meeting corporate objectives there. Next, okay, to make strategy even more clear and to ensure that strategy is everyone's job, one needs to look at defining and building a performance scorecard, okay? And that performance scorecard typically defines what each strategic objective means and why it's important. Then to ensure there's clarity of reporting and ownership for reporting those objectives across the entire organization or team is an individual dedicated to that function, to that process. And that person is called the strategic objective reporter. His or her task is to understand the performance of the objective during a set period of time and to identify not only the facts behind it, but to make recommendations for continuing that same path of performance or change it for a different and better outcome. And that means having conversations with process owners or project leaders to figure out why something was or not on track, and then through consultation, collaboration, figuring out what success could be going forward. And you'll also see key performance indicators, okay? KPIs, those are measures of success. You'll also want to see an annual or quarterly target, meaning what are we trying to achieve during that specific period of time, and ultimately the accountability for the management and scorecard performance. This is just a sample of a performance scorecard, and you'll see simply here definitions, measurement requirements, performance periods, and management of indicators. These are all things that you need to include in a performance scorecard. Cascading that strategy, as in this slide, you want to be able to take that objective, for instance, optimize customer profitability, and break that down into lay terms, and break that down into operating objectives that could be broken down by region or by sales rep, that sort of thing. But for each of these things, you need to define what success is, that's the measure, and what the actual success point or target is for that year, to ultimately then be able to get to reporting information that's accurate and meaningful, but ties directly back to the objective. We also say that goals need to be SMART, and translating business objectives into your sales goals are imperative. To manage the opportunities and risk of getting these strategic objectives done is based on the connection between one critically important goal, as in goal 1, which is to increase total profit by 10%, okay, here, okay, and cascading it all the way down into your organization or team to goal 3, which is to reduce cost of goods sold by customer category by 5%. In this illustration, you will see the linkages or stepping stone from one goal to the next, ensuring that each goal is SMART, meaning specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Often organizations and teams set such lofty goals that they are unattainable, or that goals fear or teams fear attempting to achieve them because they simply don't see the step from one smaller goal to a more important goal over time. So to then create a broad-based accountability system across the sales team, one really needs to start looking at, okay, what are the specific goals, okay, that are relevant and fair? And how are you defining those goals through a KPI or measure and a target? Okay, so the question is, who owns those objectives? Who owns that objective by team, by category, by product, by region, by rep? These are things that one must be clear on. And in order to set SMART goals, you need to answer 6 key questions. Okay, who is involved in that? Why? What are the specific reasons, purposes, or benefits of accomplishing that goal? What do I need to accomplish? Where must this goal be met? Is it a region or a target? And what's the time frame? And at the end of the day, okay, what are the things that are going to help you or hinder you in terms of constraints? Cascading goals deep into a sales force is imperative. And at the end of the day, I frankly don't care how you define it, if you make it pretty or not, if it's simply numbers or not, or it's qualitative. You must be very clear on what the tangible or intangible goal is. It's better if it is tangible, but in some cases it's intangible. By describing it, as in this case, for example, increasing market share by 5% by close of 2019, gives us a window in terms of, okay, what is the actual measure or KPI, which is market share? The annual target is 5%, and the time is by close of 2019. So the more clear you are on the KPI, the target, the time frame, and who's accountable, really leads itself to being a very SMART goal. And ultimately, who is accountable for those goals? Goals or objectives may be, defined this way. This is just a simple overview of what a specific goal could be, what the definition is, what the time frame is, what success looks like in terms of specificity, what is the measure, is it attainable, and if so, how and when, is it realistic and time-based, and actually who completes the task to get it done by when. And when you start thinking about attainability and action-oriented, the question is your goal challenging and not overwhelming? Can you identify those goals that are most important to you? And when you do, you can begin to figure out ways you can actually make them come true. Another question is, does your goal relate to your mission? And at what point will you meet your goal and measure benchmarks along the way? So being very clear is very important. And just in closing, no matter what, when designing future sales strategies for your organization or teams, be sure to follow the simple checklist below. One is know what success is. Okay, make sure it's in forms of tangibility so that you can define success so that everyone is clear on the sandbox, its corners, and when one knows that they've succeeded. 2, understand the linkages between strategic objectives one to another so that they can determine the root cause behind the success or failure of one important objective and the other. 3, be very deliberate. Know how your business model and strategic objectives link to each other, along with the investments that you make to ensure progress and that the financial objectives are being met. 4, be very, very specific. So specific that objectives are SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. 5, cascade that strategy into operational terms and to make strategy everyone's job. Everyone doesn't have to be a strategist, but they need to link back to strategy and what those objectives are. And lastly, when you win, make sure that the right team and individuals are rewarded accordingly. So at the end of the day, folks, good luck. Business modeling isn't easy to do, but if you follow the step-by-step guide around the 9 building blocks, answer the questions attached to that, map it out, be clear on what your revenue model is, etc., making sure that your strategy map, objectives, measures of success, what success actually looks like, and who's accountable for it, and that your objectives are SMART, you have a greater chance of winning and celebrating. So thank you very much. Again, Pierre Lebel from Rzultz Consulting. Good luck to all of you at CPSA, and good luck making money. Cheers.